Hey everybody, today's words to live by are: you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love. And that is from Jim Carrey, the actor. And quickly, before I get into the reflection for today, I am a huge fan of Jim Carrey, the actor, and I'm even more of a fan of his as a person. And so that stretches back to the 90s, watching him in Ace Ventura and other films. But it also is in the early 2000s when I was living in Los Angeles for about 5 years. And one of those years, I had the opportunity to spend a holiday with him at his home. And it was Thanksgiving, either in 2003 or 2004. I can't remember which year it was, but it was one of those 2 years. And I walked in there as a big fan of his, not knowing him, and I walked away an even bigger fan after knowing him a little bit. And so this quotation, and there will be others, and I probably am going to do a longer form video about just his general philosophy because I think there's a lot of truth in it. But for this particular reflection, what really screams at me is if failure is possible either way, why not fail at something you actually love doing, right? So he tells a story and gives some context here about, I guess it was his father who had a lot of talent as somebody who was really funny, but he was in a job that he didn't really love and seemed pretty miserable to hear Jim tell it. And he lost his job one day. And so that's sort of what spurred this quotation. I think was like, gosh, looking at him, if you're going to fail at something and hate doing it anyway, why not just put all of your devotion and love and care into something that you really enjoy? So that spoke to me. And in retrospect now, in the last, 20, 25 years, it's really meant a lot to me because even before then with tennis, right? I mean, there was absolutely no guarantees of anything remotely successful in that sport. And I did it anyway because I loved it. I just loved it as a kid, and I loved watching it, and I loved playing it, and I was just like all about it. And then, around the turn of the century, as my business career was starting to unfold a little bit, I remembered that and I sort of kept that in mind, and I worked at places that I really enjoyed. It wasn't necessarily the biggest consulting firm in the world, but there were some big companies that I worked for, and most of all, it was just because I really enjoyed the culture and the people, and I had a lot of fun. And so that, brought me to working at Playboy for 5 years, as well as an internet advertising agency in New York. And so those two things were just so much fun, right? And then there were some things that I did that I didn't really enjoy, like my heart wasn't really into it. And lo and behold, like I got laid off one time, and it was from a company that like really wasn't like, oh, I really want to do this. I pursued the job just because, for all intents and purposes, there was some stability there at a time when I thought stability might serve me and my family well. Long story short, it didn't really do anything for me or for my family for very long. And so I'm kind of like, well, Jim was right. I should have just followed my heart and done what I really wanted to do. So in recent years, that's exactly what I've done, which is going back to doing the things that I love with no guarantees and no set targets or limits about how far I can go. But it got me into writing, which I love. It got me into speaking, which I enjoy, and it got me to doing these videos, which I really enjoy. And it's how I feel I can help the most amount of people, the highest number of people. And it's sort of getting philosophy that was shared with me out to the masses of people as best I can. So I think really this reflection, it's about authenticity, courage to some degree, but I think it's more so about authenticity. And so failure isn't necessarily something to fear, it's part of every path. But if you start to go down any path and you fail, wouldn't you rather be doing something you love, right? And so I think it seems easy, but it's really hard to do in practice sometimes. And so I think every great life story, it starts with a well-aligned leap. And often it's the leap into something that we simply just love the most. So my takeaway is choose a path that fulfills you. You'll either fail doing something you enjoy, or you'll reap the rewards while doing something you love. So I hope you enjoyed today's reflection. If you did, please like and or subscribe, and I'll see you all again soon.